Excellent. So, congratulations on your upcoming visit.
Thank you. Yeah, it's exciting. I
Is it
appreciate it.
is it something that you have entertained before, or is this like going to be like a one-off thing?
Um, I thought about, I actually approached a couple galleries, maybe 5 years ago, and they were pretty high-end galleries in Los Angeles and San Francisco and New York, and they seemed to be more focused on like the Rolling Stones and the Beatles and all that, and so I was a little surprised. They not really interested. And Stephen had 5 years later, Stephen had kind of called me out of nowhere and said, "Hey, I can see some of your photos online, and I would love to find out more about them and maybe present them to the public." And um, it, yeah, it was like a no-brainer. I heard his philosophy, and I was like, "Yeah, I totally agree." And those photos had never seen, well, some of them, but I'd say about half of them have never seen the light of day. So they've just been sitting in boxes and stuff like that for, you know, 20 plus years at that time. So yeah, it's cool.
So, as a fellow photographer, I always have to ask, what got you into photography?
And I was doing the documentary for Nine Inch Nails,
Yep.
purely video and Super 8 and all that. And Anton came out. He was doing a photo shoot for, I think it was Spin magazine for the cover in London. And I met Anton and we were talking, and he's the one that said to me, you're out here, you're already here, so I would highly suggest grab a camera and take some images, some still shots. And I was like, oh, okay, it's a great idea. And boy, was he right. It's funny how sometimes I'd get back to the hotel room and I would look at the video footage, and then I would get a box of the God, it's been so long. Remember what you used to get the to look at the with the through the glass?
Yeah, like a contact sheet.
Yeah, a contact sheet.
Yeah.
It's been so long, right?
Yep.
That we use contact sheets. And I was more mesmerized by the contact sheets than
Yep.
than I was by even I mean, the video too. But I was surprised at how well that in comparison the photos held up as far as being like just something about them.
Yeah.
And back in the 90s, there was no Photoshop. There was no you hit that, you snap the camera, and then that
You
was it.
waited. You waited to get them back.
You waited to get it back. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, and that's like I started shooting in the '90s, so I know the well, now I think we're a lot luckier then because I don't know what you think, but living in that instantaneous world, I think sometimes now people don't have to concentrate as much on their framing of their shots and their settings because they know that they can just delete it.
Yeah, and crop it.
Yep.
When did you start? When did you start to do it? You're a photographer too.
A gig photographer.
Yeah.
So my first shoot was 1996.
Oh, so you and I are same time frame, sort of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's sort of the same thing happened that I was working on the road with a band, and a band member gave me their camera and said,
Ah,
"Oh, can you take some photos?" And then it was like they bought a camera and didn't know how to use it, and
right.
I took the photos, and then they got developed, and they're like, "Oh, you're really good at that," and I was like, "Oh, I better go and buy a camera." Like
There you go.
I studied it in school, but
Oh, okay.
like I did that like in the art class with the art teacher kind of thing in the dark room.
Right.
But it wasn't until someone sort of said, "Oh, I think you're good at that." I was like, "Well, yeah, you're way more famous than me, so I'll take your advice." And we got into the next town, and I ran into a pawn shop and just bought what looked was the same as what they had.
Nice.
And
Yeah.
you just sort of got to roll with it. Back then, you took those photos on the hopes that some of them look good.
Well, I had some kind of the similar scenario where Anton said that to me, and then I was like, oh, okay, so I should get into that. And I didn't have a camera at that point. And then I remember, I think the label or Trent's publicist or somebody had contacted me and said, hey, can you take some photos for this magazine? And I think we were ending up in Hawaii or something. We were doing some shows in Hawaii. And I remember going to like a tourist camera shop
Yep.
and asking the guy behind the counter, like, what lens should I buy? Bought all the wrong lenses. Like everything I bought was wrong. And none of the photos really came out. So
Yep.
my first teaching was from like basically a tourist shop in Hawaii.
Yep.
But it's funny what you said, because I remember him. He was kind of like, he probably hated me because I was like, hey, I got to take these photos of Nine Inch Nails, and he did tell me that he went to photography school, and like, how, why am I here and you're there? You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
this, yeah. And he deserved to be there, and I deserved behind the counter at the tourist photography store at
Yep.
that point with my knowledge. So yeah, but did you find that it's so interesting to talk to you, because did you find that um, you just had a feel for it, and you just something that was natural for you?
Yeah. I was really lucky that look, on a personal standpoint, for me, I started taking photos because after my mother passed away when I was quite young, I realized we had no photos of her.
Ah,
And I was like, why have we got no photos? And then I had a brother-in-law that was an avid photographer. Like, he had a really great Minolta set up, and he just sort of was like, hey, what's the worst that can happen? You have a bad photo. And back
right,
then it was quite cheap to develop photos, as long as you waited like that week or 2 weeks to get it back.
right, right.
And then, yeah, I was working for a fanzine back in the day, a Kiss one. That's how it all revolves back to Kiss for me. So
Oh,
I was at, for
Kiss?
Kiss, yeah. So
Oh, okay.
I was out doing some photos of Bruce Kulick and Eric Singer, and just got I was with them for a couple of days, and I was like, oh shit, these are really good. Okay, and then I realized, like, being a sort of try hard musician, how a lot of photos, when you look at magazines, always have a very similar look with the lighting. Even if the lights are different, there's always like a certain way the drummer looks or the guitar player looks. And so then I would just spend my time in the photo pit as other people were running around, like backwards and forwards, standing still for the one shot. You know,
Right,
I
right,
can. I remember shooting Kiss one time, and I saw a guy change roles like 4 or 5 times, and I didn't even finish the
right,
36.
right. Was that the first band you were out with before you
Yeah.
started photography?
Yep.
Oh, and
Yeah.
wow, that's talk about a first band to start out with. Well, it's funny. I met a collector, and he lives in Ohio, and he reached out to me. But his two favorite bands are Kiss and Nine Inch Nails. So you
Wow.
and I are right in his
Yeah. He runs the
his scope.
gamut though, doesn't he?
Maybe he owns one of your photographs. Yeah.
Oh,
Well, that's
that'd be lucky if he didn't. Yeah.
yeah. Wow, that's pretty cool. I did have one experience with Kiss that relates to with Nine Inch
Yeah.
Nails that seems appropriate to tell. Um, we were invited as guests to go see them down in Louisiana or something like that. And it was just Trent and I, and we were in New Orleans, and so Trent was like, "Hey, we got invited to go see Kiss and meet them backstage and everything." And so we got in a car and we drove from New Orleans to, I forget where it was, Lafayette or something like that. And we went backstage and we met him and all that, and it was like they were larger than life. I'm sure
Yeah.
you I'm talking about. They're like action figures walking down
Yeah.
the hallway. What, 7 foot with the shoes on or something
Close.
crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Trent's a huge Kiss fan, so
Yeah.
he was just like, just like, I can't believe I'm about to meet all of them. And I did take a couple photos. I think you can find them online.
One's in their documentary.
Oh, is it? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
in the documentary of that tour, there is a photo of Trent and the band.
Ah, okay. That I think I took that one. It would
Yeah,
be the one I took. But what was funny was that Gene Simmons, they were all getting ready to go on stage, and I'm sure you know this routine. And they huddled, right? They get in the
yep.
huddle, and then Gene looked over to Trent and I and said, "Get over here, get in the huddle." And so we
Wow.
got in the huddle, and here we are, like in the huddle with Kiss. They're about to take the stage, and Gene Simmons, you probably know what he says, but Gene Simmons says, "Why are we doing it?" And everyone yelled, "For the money!" And they took the stage. I thought that was,
Yeah, they from what I've seen, I've seen a couple of the huddles take place, and they normally take turns in doing it. So, but that makes perfect sense to come out of his
yeah,
mouth.
yeah. I mean, I've obviously tongue in cheek and but somewhat true, right? So,
Very true.
yeah, very true. I mean, I think that's public knowledge, right? That I
Yeah,
mean, my God, there's a Kiss coffin, you know.
that doubles as a cooler, and he'll tell you that.
Oh, there you go. There you go. I didn't think about that. Well,
It,
I was joking with Trent once that he should offer the Nine Inch Nails bulldozer like
yeah,
online. So you just buy, a $250,000 bulldozer and just stencil Nin on it and resell it as the
yep.
$250,000 Nin bulldozer, you know.
Well, I've often thought he should go into children's playground equipment and do like a slippery slope and call it the downward spiral.
Oh, there you go. I like that.
He could just have his own 90 Nails playground with just stuff like that in it.
There you
But
go. The
but
downward spiral. Yep.
now back to you being on tour with bands. It's a really different situation to being, say, in a static studio or like a really set up shoot. So you're in a unique position. You're a fly on a wall, and you've either got to be inconspicuous to get a shot or
Yep.
in your face to get a shot. How
Yep.
hard was it to sort of go between those two worlds without, for whatever better word, pissing a band member off?
Well, it's funny because my style is very, I've actually sacrificed the quality of equipment to just look like I'm nobody in the room.
Yeah,
I always thought I'm willing to give up a little bit of quality um, to get in a position where people literally forgotten you're in the room. So that worked for me.
yeah,
I know one time I was out on, have you ever heard of the Warp Tour?
yeah.
Which is like, okay. So I was hired to do the 10-year anniversary documentary, and I was out on tour with them all summer. And there happened to be another film crew that was not competing, but they were also got the green light to document the tour. So it was a very unusual situation where there were two. Have you ever been in that situation where?
Look, even without like different companies, every photo pit has its own competition. Let's just say that.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah. So these guys showed up, and nothing, I'm not saying anything negative, just two different styles, but they showed up with like, I mean, they had uniforms and full-on boom mics and cameras and lights and everything, and there was a crew of like seven of them, and they were just like, I mean, maybe my perspective was a little off, but it felt like they were like tripping over themselves to get the quality and the everything, and it was like the artist was like, you know, who are you guys? Like just kind of like overwhelmed by it all.
yeah,
And I just had my what looked like a consumer camera,
yeah,
just cruising around, just kind of sneaking in and getting what you want. And of course, there's a responsibility with that. You don't want to capture anything that nobody really wants public, you know what I mean?
yeah.
So there's privacy stuff, obviously. But yeah, I always just to answer your question, I was always stripped down, very little
Less, less
technology.
is more.
Less is more. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And it's like anything. If you went out in the nature and you're trying to document animals, birds or whatever, you really don't want them to know you're there, so that they'll just kind of stay natural and do their thing. Not to compare, musicians to.
they're sort of one and the same. They like to look good and but like to be left alone sometimes.
Yeah, yep, yep, yeah. So yeah, so that's how my approach. Are you the same way? You kind of sort
I
of.
I went between. So a lot of photographers, and there's nothing wrong with this, but I noticed them in the pit with 2 and 3 cameras hanging off them.
Right.
And for the longest time, I thought, oh, I've got to do that because they must be getting some great shots. And then I realized
Yeah.
it, it's just too much. Like,
Much. Yeah.
like I literally just got back from 2 shows with Slash, and it'll be the same for Trent. I was up on the stage and I noticed because I went down after the first 3 because then I could have my own space, because they were all gone. But I noticed that they were like this little group of sheep everywhere Slash went, they went. And I was like, there was no other
Yeah.
band members on stage. Like,
Right.
and I
Right.
guess
Yeah.
that would happen for Trent is that everywhere he goes, there'd just be this pod of photographers chasing him. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
and there's all of them with 2 and 3 cameras hanging off them, like probably banging into each other.
Yep.
And I
Yeah.
just went down. I'm a fan of never using the newest gear. Like I always say, I'm perpetually last year's model.
Oh, there you go.
Like I got a Sony A7 II, which I just bought some new lenses, which it just works for me. It's just a
Yeah.
great pairing, and that's the thing. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter what gear you use; it's how you use it.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And
In
so
fact,
yeah,
I'm embarrassingly non-technical. I mean, I just don't, I just rent it and the guy
yep.
shows me kind of how to use it. And did you do any videotaping at all or
I
filming?
I am horrible with video.
Okay.
That's the one thing I've never learned. Like my big thing on this tour, because I do have friends in the band, um, was I've always been pushing to get to do the bow shot at the end of the night with the crowd. I've done a couple of them, and I just love it. I love that sort of quick thrill of you really have to get this one right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I got it granted on this tour, which was lovely. So I did both of those.
So you mentioned Slash. Have you done Guns N' Roses recently, or was this way back
I,
in before?
no, I've never shot guns, but his solo
Wow.
band.
Okay.
So
Because I was out with Axel for a little while, and I just thought
yeah,
maybe we were out at the same time with them. But did you ever? So you know you didn't do video that much. So I did find I had a moment where we were in Madison Square Garden with 9 Inch Nails, and I had my photography camera around my neck, and I had my video camera in my, my camera bag,
yep.
and I was like, okay, I'm going to get, this is a big moment. It's in Madison Square Garden. I'm going to get photographs and I'm going to get video, and I ended up getting neither because
Wow.
I was trying to go from the camera to the video, and then I just decided, when I say I got neither, I mean I just said, okay, I have to pick one
Yep.
for maybe going to the stage is photography, and then maybe the stage performance is video. But the two at the same time,
Yeah.
it just, like you said, you have too much equipment on you, and
Yep.
it's too
Yeah.
distracting.
And I think you can't get your mindset correct if you like. For me, if I've got more than one camera on,
Right. Yeah.
my mindset's not with where I need to be. So this
Yeah.
last weekend when I went and did the 2 shows, it was all about just get because I had permission to
Right.
do whatever I want, which was great. But they do a cover of Rocket Man at the end of the set.
Is this
Um,
Kid you're talking about?
no Slash.
Oh, Slash. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so they do a cover of Rocket Man. So Slash plays a pedal steel on stage, and my
Oh,
buddy
wow.
Brent, who is the drummer, plays keyboards, and
Wow.
his drum tech actually plays drums. So there's
Oh,
6 guys
cool.
on stage, and like they always make the joke when there's only the 5 of them is no one ever gets all 5 of us on stage.
Right.
So I make a point of trying to get all 5, but then I got all 6 with the
Right.
drum tech playing drums, and it's just I think about things like that. Like okay, when I'm talking with people as you would, they go, "Oh, we've never seen this," and so you put it in the back of your mind to go, next time I'll try and get that shot or that look.
Right.
So for
Yeah.
Trent, he seems very particular about how he wants 9 Inch Nails to come across. Was it was there any really thing specific he wanted you to do?
I have to tell you, he was completely hands off. Yeah, completely hands off. I don't think he ever gave me I mean, all we did literally was had a conversation in the beginning of the documentary, beginning of the tour. He said, just sort of be a flower on the wall and just capture whatever you capture. I think what I'm doing here is worthy of capturing. And that was it.
Yep.
That was it. And then, yeah, so to answer your question, well, but the thing about, have you seen a Nine Inch Nails show? Have you ever been to a Nine Inch Nails show?
Not when he's toured here. I've never seen one, but
Okay.
I've seen enough sort of video footage to know
Yeah.
how intense it is.
And so from a photographer's perspective, obviously if you just kind of reverse engineer this for a second, if you do a photo shoot, right, whatever the
Yep.
subject is, you can control the space, the timing, the light,
Yep.
you know, a Nine Inch Nails show, you just throw all that out. You
Yep.
can't control the lighting, you can't control the composition. I mean, what I say, you can't create it. You can
Yeah.
only find it in there. But uh, and then you're getting people coming over the barricade, so you're getting hit,
Yep.
and you're getting assaulted from the front with all the sometimes the machines, the fog machines, and then the lights are just insane, and the action, and there's equipment flying, and then you're getting assaulted from the back, and with people coming over the barricade, and
Yep.
the security's they're respectful to you, but at the same time they got to catch this kid that's about to land on his head,
Yeah.
and you get pushed out of the way. Yeah, I mean, I've been hit by mic stands. I've been hit by bottles. I've had water dumped on me.
Yeah.
I've had my camera taken from me.
Okay.
That was with Guns N' Roses in Portugal. So
Wow.
the Axel was playing a soccer stadium, and they have those big barricades, and the bodyguard, the security guy that
Yep.
travels with Axel, he said, if you go over the barricade, because sometimes he gets in the barricade,
Yep.
and uh, he says, if you go out beyond the barricade, I can't help you.
Yep.
And I said, oh, I know what I'm doing. I've done this many times. I'm okay. And I wanted to get out by the front of the house soundboard,
Yep.
and I'm out there taking photos and videotaping or whatever. And then all of a sudden, two drunk Portuguese guys, nothing mean about it, but they were drunk and they thought it was funny to take my bag. Then they thought
Yep.
it was funny to pick me up. And then the next thing you know, I'm being passed around. My camera bag's going one direction, I'm going in the other. I'm getting farther away from the barricade. I'm like, I should have listened to the
Yeah.
bodyguard, knew what he was talking about.
Yeah.
But then there was a bunch of other fans that were sober and saw what was happening, and they stepped in and they got everything back, and they got me back over the barricade, and yeah, it's like a war zone. But
Okay.
so when you were filming, when you take photographs of Kiss, do you find yourself? I mean, can you even go on stage with
No, I've
Kiss?
never done that. They've got their own people to do that.
Yeah,
And
right.
to be honest with you, I think I'd be too afraid of being blown up. I'd prefer to stay in the photo pit.
That's what I was saying. That's why, I
Yeah.
mean, I was being serious when I said maybe
Yeah.
they don't allow anybody on stage because they have pyros, and
Yeah. And
people.
they have a gentleman that traveled with them before they stopped Keith, and Keith works for Paul Stanley, so he would do the end of night shots and
Right.
go into,
Right.
because in that last Kiss tour, you actually pay to be in the photo pit.
Oh, is that right?
Fans would pay a bunch of money to watch the show from the photo pit. So,
Like in the
um,
barricade?
oh yeah.
Wow.
So the very last show they did in Australia was October last year in Sydney. So I went down for that. And so
Hmm.
because it was the last show, they had all more crew there, so lots of video,
Right.
and literally you had one foot of space between the end of the video platforms and the barricade. And then they tried to put fans in there.
Wow.
And so
Wow.
we had to wait for the scrim to come down before you go in the photo pit because it's so heavy. They need to be able
Yeah.
to take it out. And so right as they took it out, they went, go. And the fans thought that they were telling them to go. They were telling the photographers to go. And I was first up. And sorry, fans, but I took you all out like dominoes. Because as you know, like when you're not with a band, you get the first three and then you get out. So by the time Kiss was getting everything organized, you were like halfway through the first song and they were only giving you first two on that tour.
Oh,
So
so
you
you had
had
one, like
one and a
one and a
half
half.
songs and dealing with the fans and the video platforms. So
Wow,
yeah,
wow.
I kind of accidentally, deliberately put my left shoulder out to gain some space and
Right.
toppled some fans that paid good money to be there. But I had a job to do.
Yeah, well, yeah, you, I respect your integrity to get the shot because in the beginning, I was too, I wasn't aggressive enough,
Yep.
and like, you have to just fight for the shot, right?
Yeah,
And
well, like you said about like the drunk people in Portugal, it seems that like every photographer has probably a drunk crowd member story. Um,
yep, yep.
I remember being at a venue, and this was when Slash was like doing his solo, so his first ever sort of solo tour down here in 2010. There was a girl who barricaded herself on the door of the venue, like yelling at, "I'm first, I'm first, I'm first," and she was drunk before the show started, and like she kept just being belligerent to people. And she got in, she got to the front row,
Wow.
and then got really upset when I was in front of her between the barricade and the stage. So I'm shooting, I just kept seeing this hand come over my lens all night. It was just like a little curtain. And I motioned to Slash's guy, and he jumped down in the photo pit and he pulled her out and he kicked her out and they shut the door. 5 minutes later, she was in the front row again. We still don't know how she got back there.
Like, well, she must have known somebody, right? Somebody in the.
Or she was just that drunk she could squeeze it, like didn't care about the pain. But I was just like, how did you
I
get back
saw.
here?
Yeah, it's amazing some of the fanatic fan stuff you see,
Yeah,
because you have privilege to be backstage and around. I saw one of the craziest things I'd ever seen. I'd never seen anything like it, and I never seen how. I mean, the artist must have been so used to this that it was like routine to him, But it was Robert Plant, and he was coming. It wasn't Led Zeppelin, obviously. It
yep,
was just Robert Plant, and he finished performing, and the dressing rooms were all done, and he was there. He was headed to the vans that were parked down in the arena and in the back hallways, and heavy security. They've been doing it for so long, and I'm sure he had top of the line security. And I mean, it's Led Zeppelin, right? So
yep,
they got fanatic fans, and as soon as he came from the corridor, a little bit of space in that where the vans come down and to the van, like he must have had 5 feet to go. This lady came out of nowhere, and she just put her arms around him, and she locked arms around his waist, and she got a grip, and
wow,
he just put his hands up like that, and he continued talking to somebody like as if it's like routine. And then the security were trying to pry her off of him, and I was just like, wow, I never seen that before,
yeah,
Yeah. So when they
that's
get back,
crazy.
they somehow get past security, and like watching it at a soccer game when somebody gets down on the field
Yeah,
and then they start running around and it's like a big chaos. It kind of the same thing. It's kind of innocent, but at the same time, it's like,
it's
how did you, it's how did that person get back here? And now they're trying to get away with as much as they can.
no,
So,
I agree with that because there's down in Melbourne, there's a mother and son team that has gotten the nickname through a lot of touring bands as the Manson family.
oh
So
yeah,
they literally appear out of nowhere, and you don't know
oh,
how they got
somehow,
there. They're just
yeah,
like
yeah,
insecure entrances to hotels,
right, right,
things like
yeah,
that. It's just like where were you and how did you get to where you like?
yeah,
It's like James Bond shit the way they do it.
yeah. Oh, I've seen him climb through ductwork in the ceilings of the in the at the amphitheater scenarios. I mean,
Wow.
I mean, I guess, I mean, maybe it's a challenge half the time. They're not even super fans. They're just trying to see if they can get backstage. And
Yep.
but yeah, yeah, isn't that crazy?
If they only knew how unexciting backstage really is.
Exactly, right?
Yep.
Exactly. I always say the phrase is what, what's backstage? A bunch of backstage people. That's all,
Yep. Yeah.
More
A-
backstage people, yeah.
and one token smelly couch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. When I was on the Warp Tour, there was no backstage. I thought that was really interesting. They treated fans and band members equally.
Wow.
Nobody got special rock star treatment, and they just literally the whole environment just kind of relaxed on all that.
That's
Um,
really cool.
yeah, and then of course that's a different generation than some of the bands we were just talking about.
Yeah.
Where things were so much more intense. Now, for the most part, it seems like it's more relaxed. They're
Yeah.
people get there just human like anybody else, and
Yeah.
except for your Taylor Swift, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Good for her.
Yeah, no, I'm all for her.
Yeah.
She
Yep.
she's awesome. Yeah, she deserves all of that. She's
Yeah.
great.
She's hustled.
Yeah, and I've been watching the footage. I mean, wow, she's in Australia right now, right? She's
She's just left. Yeah. But
massive crowds, like stadiums
ninety
sold out.
thousand.
100,000 I think I saw in
Yeah. Well, I
Melbourne.
think one of them. Yeah. 100,000. And that's the thing is that look, she's going to cop flack no matter what she does.
Right.
But if
Yeah.
you can sell out a 100,000 seat stadium a couple of nights over, and our
Yeah.
stadiums are built for sport, not for concerts, so they have to have a little bit of extra consideration for the
Yeah.
way they do the staging and things like that. And you know, I remember my wife went and saw her on the last tour. At the Publicist, we did some things with them, and they ended up in the front row. They were gifted front row seats for the last
Oh,
tour, and she said to
wow.
me, "It is the most mind blowing atmosphere. It's not just about the performance; it's about the
Really?
atmosphere of the show, um,
Wow.
and how Taylor is very empowering and very uplifting,
Yeah.
and a lot of artists are very sort of self-serving when they do their on-stage speeches. But she actually took a video of one of Taylor's speeches and we put it online, and just we between us we've got 6 kids and we've got 4 daughters. So the
Right.
way that Taylor empowers women should be credited.
You have 6 kids.
We have
Wow.
6 kids, yeah. Yeah.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Or commiserations, depending on the day.
Yeah, that's a family. Now that's a
They
family,
and they most of them are quite handy with a camera. Our 9-year-old is our youngest, so he came out to the Slash show on Sunday,
right?
and I took him down in the photo pit just because there was 2 songs to go, and I was like, okay, let's get you down, sit you down there because you're allowed to be there. And then Slash noticed him and came over and just stood in front of him. I just handed him my phone. I went, you want to take some photos?
Yeah.
And I noticed Slash just peered down from his glasses because, as you know, he can't see out of them. He peered down and just noticed he was there and just stayed. And I said,
Oh, that's so
I
cool.
said to my son Isaac, when you're ready, just give him the thumbs up to know that you're done.
Right.
And
That's so
he
cool.
went like this, and Slash walked off, and like you'd think they were taken on a camera. That's so
Oh,
good.
that's so cool. Yeah, that's awesome.
He took them
Very
back and
cool.
showed everyone. He was really proud of his
Oh
handiwork.
yeah. Yeah.
But
How old is he?
he's 9.
Oh wow.
So
Wow.
he's a soccer guy at the moment. But after that show, my wife busted him setting up a pretend drum kit with toys again. So there's the music thing, and like he's surrounded by music with what we do. Like
Yeah.
he's just surrounded by it.
Yeah.
And so he goes from country to metal. He's
Very
very well
cool.
versed. Now, you mentioned Robert Plant before. Are you going to have any of your shots of Robert Plant in this exhibition?
So my experience is the early on, I was in the kind of involved in the whole concert industry,
Yep.
and I was not as a photographer.
Yep.
Yeah, at that. So the Robert Plant concert, I was just working the concert as
Oh,
a
yeah. Cool.
I did it. I was in charge of dressing rooms, which I thought was interesting, but I was still going to college, and
Yeah.
somehow I got trusted with the dressing rooms, and that's probably how it all kind of eventually I got trusted to do documentaries and stuff like that. So that would be
Yeah.
how to connect the dots.
Okay.
Once you're kind of trusted around the celebrity sort of thing, and and then you take on more responsibilities because
Yeah.
you're
Would you,
trusted.
so David Bowie, you said there's going to be no photos of David in the exhibition. So besides like Trent and Nine Inch Nails, what can the fans expect at the exhibitions?
Um, I think I think it's if you've never been to one of the shows, if you're like, one of those shows from back then from the Downward Spiral Self-Destruct tour, I think it's a chance to just kind of like take in the images. And I think there's a wide dynamics of what was going on, from the kind of the chaos and the felt dangerous and things like that to like the more somber solitude kind of stuff. I think hopefully the images show that range. Um, it's probably also about the group of people there. There's probably
Yep.
going to be people that have seen it and people that haven't, and everybody has the same thing in common. They're a fan of it, and probably a lot of great conversations and connecting to people and talking about something you're both interested in. And
Yep.
uh, the images I think there's like 30 of Nine Inch Nails in the downward, from the Self-Destruct tour. And then I think there's like maybe 7 opening acts. David Bowie, not he wasn't an opening act, but he was obviously a major uh, additional act to that tour. They co-headlined for a little while.
Yep.
And like the Melvins and Tool and Lou Reed and then there's also like 7 images from I did a photo series limited edition of the Palladium shows in Hollywood in 2018.
Hmm.
Trent had sold that out for I think 6 nights, and these are some more that the public's never seen. And if you're a collector of that series, you might find these interesting. And yeah, so hopefully it's a camaraderie, and hopefully the photographs can kind of spark your imagination on what it was like to be at those shows. And those shows were just absolutely, I've never seen anything like them since.
Yep.
So um, they were events, definitely, just unbelievable what Trent was doing. And it's just amazing. Yeah, it was like larger than the room,
Yeah.
just always felt like that it was just something bigger than what was happening. Yeah, pretty
And,
cool.
and you'll be able to purchase prints. Will you be signing prints?
Yes. So Stephen put all this together, and I think each image has a limited run of 50,
Great.
and each one's been signed by myself, and you can purchase them. And yeah,
And you'll
it's,
also be doing a chat on one of the days there,
yeah,
like
so
a
I'm
Q&A
there.
portion.
Right. So I'll be there Wednesday. I think it's the 6th,
Yep.
March 6th, the first night. And then I'll be there, I believe it's the 8th,
Yep. The 8th. Yep.
to celebrate that's the record release anniversary of the Downward Spiral.
Yep.
And then I'll be there for the Q&A on Saturday.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And are you planning on doing any more work with Trent in the future?
Yeah, if he asks, for sure. It's always, if he wants me to come out and do some photography,
Yep.
yeah, absolutely. It's I feel like it's a gift to be able, as a photographer, to be able to take those photographs, because just as we talked about, you don't have any control of any of the elements.
Yep.
At the same time, there are so many elements, and that I think that a lot of photographers would get would be able to get more photographs from the subject of Nine Inch Nails than a lot of subject bands, because a lot of them, there's not a lot going on stage,
Yeah.
outside of musically, of course, but as far as the visuals, it's not this chaos, and you're just kind of finding these different things as you're taking the photographs. And there's a lot more, it's a lot more exciting as a subject than most bands, it seems like. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, while we're out of time for today, I'd love to schedule a part 2 with you where we can go a little bit more in depth
Yeah,
and
anytime,
talk
man. I
about
enjoy talking to
photography.
you.
I'll,
Yeah, we have so many things in similar in
yeah,
common. I don't have 6 kids though. I don't have 6 kids.
I definitely do.
You definitely do.
But yeah,
That's amazing.
I'd love
That's
to chat
awesome.
with you about photography and stuff. Unfortunately, because you'll be in Sydney, I'm up here in Brisbane. We won't be down for
Okay.
the exhibition, but hopefully it might come back and go around the country. That'd be fantastic.
I'm open to that for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome, Jonathan. Wish you well for it. Enjoy being in our country, but let's schedule a part 2 for another time.
Sounds great. And thanks again. I appreciate this time with you, and look forward to meeting you one day.
Hopefully. Thanks so
Yes.
much. All the
Okay.
best.
Take care.
Thank
You
you.
too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.